This is Advice for Life with Dr. Cathy. We're so glad you're here with us today with Beautifully Broken Counseling. And I promised you we're going to look at some things about abuse, and that's what we're going to do. But playing in the background is a song that we use a lot here. It's called Beautifully Broken. You can find that on our website. But some of the lyrics are: every tear, every doubt, every time you've fallen down, when you're hurting, feeling shame, and when you're numbing all your pain, when you've lost your way and feel so far away, you're not. You're beautifully broken, and you can be whole again. Even 1,000,000 scars doesn't change whose you are. You're worthy, beautifully broken. And then it goes on to say, every fear of being loved for who you are, no matter what, when you're stumbling with each step and you're haunted by regret and the darkness closes in, just listen. You're beautifully broken and you can be whole again. Even 1,000,000 scars doesn't change whose you are. You're worthy. You're beautifully broken. You're beautifully broken. You're beautifully broken. This is not a song we wrote. It is something that God did for someone else that it happened to be our message. We were here first, but this came out and there was a movie. I would highly suggest, if you have brokenness in your life, to go see that movie. It was absolutely wonderful. It was a real tearjerker though. So today we're going to be talking about abuse. So that's why this song is kind of appropriate, because until you can actually understand that your abuse was not God's fault, but it was man's choices or women's choices, it was humans' choices to do things outside of God's will, then you think that the abuse that came to you is actually at God's hands. And so it causes you to filter everything through something that God actually meant you harm. And God did not mean you harm. God has had a plan for you. He wants to use the brokenness in a way that will help someone else see that there is beauty, there is redemption. He promises that He will restore the years that the locusts have eaten. He does, if you just give it over to Him. He says He is near the brokenhearted. He binds up their wounds, and that is our promise. I told you last segment that I would tell you what the DSM says about narcissistic personality disorder, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on that, but this is where some abuse comes from. Everybody that's in an abuse cycle right now, they think that they are automatically in touch with a narcissistic person. Well, they might have traits of a narcissist, but I think that term is thrown out there way too much. It's a very low number in the population, but we all have tendencies towards being selfish, and that's really what narcissism is. But real narcissism is the inability to have empathy. So that is a big issue within the relationship, and that's why if you're hurting, they don't care. It's no skin off of their back. As long as they're getting that emotional response from you, that's actually feeding the part that they need. So they will sometimes be nice to get you to come back towards them. And when you get into that cycle and you come back towards them, then they will be abusive to get you trapped again. And in those trappings, you tell yourself all kinds of things about yourself. You actually, if you've got someone who's really good, you may even think you're crazy. And there's some things out there called gaslighting, and you can do some more research on that. We don't delve a whole lot into this kind of thing. When you come to Beautifully Broken Counseling, we want to find out why you're hurting to the point that your life is falling apart. We want to find out if there is classified abuse being done to you in the past or currently. We want to help you get the strength to stand up to abuse and say, no, I will not tolerate this behavior. You have every right to have righteous anger when it comes to being abused. God never intended for you to be a doormat. He never intended for you to just let someone abuse you in any way. And so I want to start off first and tell you what the, on the internet, the dictionary version of abuse is, okay? So the dictionary version is, it's a verb and it has 3 different connotations here. One is to use something to a bad effect or for a bad purpose, or misuse, as in the judge abused his power by imposing the fines. Okay, that's one. Another one is to treat a person or an animal with cruelty or violence, especially regularly or repeatedly. This one covers a lot of abuse with people who are physically abusive, emotionally abusive, sexually abusive, all of those things. And the last one is to speak in an insulting and offensive way to or about someone. You know, the one thing that I want you to understand is that biblical counseling teaches you how God speaks to you. God never comes to you with condescending tones or blaming or anything. God comes to us in love and mercy, and he says, you know, this is not where I want you to be. There was a time when Elijah was being chased by Baal, and Baal had threatened to kill Elijah. And so he ran far away and he went and lived in a cave. He stayed in a cave for a while. Now, he was not where God wanted him to be. And so God lovingly came to him and he said, Elijah, why are you here? This is not where I want you to be. You need to go up, get up and go back and do what I've called you to do. Sometimes when we're abused and we begin to recognize it, sometimes we don't even know we were abused. It comes to us and we're like, oh my goodness, that was wrong. And we begin to stand up to it. Then the abuser will try to push us back in a corner and try to say, you know, what you're saying is a lie, and that never happened, you're crazy, all these things. I've heard them all from everybody that's come here and sat on this couch behind me. It's terrible that we get a secondary abuse. What we should be able to do is we should be able to lovingly go to someone and say, you know what, I remember a time when there was pain between you and I, and it hurt me deeply, and I would like to talk about it. I would like to rectify the situation. But you rarely ever get that. Now, if you can bring that person into counseling with you, then we can usually get to that level, because I or my husband are going to be there to help facilitate the civility. We're going to make sure that everybody's playing nice, and we're going to be able to look and see, why has this pattern of abuse started? And if the person refuses to change, then you have to decide what you're going to do with your life. You can stay in it if you want, but if they're not changing with the threat of you leaving, they are definitely not going to change with you staying. If you decide to leave, you need to be safe. You need to know that this exit, you can't go in, out, in, out. You have to exit. You have to do what you need to do to be safe. Make sure if there are children there, that they're safe. If it just cannot be worked out. Safety is first. And then once you get out and you can think clearly, then get some help. Get some help from someone who knows about abuse, who's experienced it, who's walked through the healing of it, and then walk out of it. There is life after abuse. You do not have to live in a cycle of dysfunction with your family or with anyone else. You can be free. And so I just want to go through some of the things of a narcissist. With the DSM that we talked about last week, you have to have 5 of the 9. Okay, so if you're trying to diagnose your spouse or girlfriend or boyfriend or brother or sister, whatever, then you may look at these things and just see. Okay, I'm not diagnosing anyone. I'm just saying this is what the DSM has as criteria. Okay, number 1, has a grandiose sense of self-importance. Okay, if you know someone like that, they have a grandiose sense of how important they are. They think the world revolves around them. Then, okay, that might be 1. Okay, number 2, is preoccupied with fantasies of unlimited success, power, brilliance, beauty, or ideal love. Okay, it means it's right there all the time. They're thinking about it all the time. Just fantasies. Always seeking success, power, brilliance. They want to be the next big thing all the time. They can't be genuine and open in a relationship. Number 3, believes that he or she is special and unique and can only be understood by other special and unique people. Okay. Number 4, requires excessive admiration. Even if you are being abused by this person, they want you to understand that they are abusing you because you need to grow up and you need to change. And you're the problem. And they wouldn't be acting like this if you were not acting the way you're acting. That's the way they throw it back on you, okay? So watch out for that one. Number 5, has a sense of entitlement. Unreasonable expectations of especially favorable treatment or automatic compliance with his or her expectations. Sometimes they do that, they just throw a fit. They throw a big fit that makes a lot of noise and a lot of mess, and they think that you should bow down to what they're asking of you. You should comply, okay? If you don't stand up to this person, then they will just get further emboldened to actually rage. The rage is very exploitive, which is number 6, okay? Is interpersonally exploitive. Okay, they take advantage to their own ends. So if it works for them to scream and holler at you and push you back, that's what they'll do. Number 7, lacks empathy. Is unwilling to recognize or identify with the feelings and needs of others. Okay, that's a big one. If they are having a hard time getting into your shoes, then that means they're unable to look in the mirror and look at themselves and say, where do I need to change? That is what is a healthy person. A healthy person looks in the mirror emotionally, or goes to a therapist or a pastor or a friend and says, you know, I've got some things in my life that are kind of messed up. I'd like to change. Can you help me? That's what a healthy person does. A non-healthy person says, there's nothing wrong with me. It's everybody else's problem. And they're always blaming. These people never get unstuck until they decide to look in the mirror and be honest. I always tell people God will deal with you one of 2 ways. One is in humility, that you've come to him with your hand out and you've said, Lord, I know that I'm messing up. I know my life is not pleasing to you. Please help me. And you come in humility. But then there's humiliation. Humiliation is that he has had to chase you down, turn up the fire so that you will listen, so that you will be still, so you'll be in misery for a moment until you can hear. I would choose humility much better than humiliation. But some of us are woodshed Christians and we have to do it the hard way. That's why he called the Jews stiff-necked people. Okay, and then number 8 is often envious of others, or believes that others are envious of him or her. And number 9, the last one, shows arrogant, haughty behaviors and attitudes. Now that's what's in this book. Okay? Now, when I looked up abuse in this book, there was really nothing in there. There's a little blurb about what the coding should be. Because usually when somebody comes in, they have been abused, and they have depression, or they have anxiety, or that kind of thing. So the therapist would then treat the person in front of them for what they're experiencing. But in biblical counseling, we want to do the whole thing. We want to do the whole system. We want to get to the root of it. We want to dig it all out if we can, if God will allow it. And if your abuser will not come in and have a conversation and be safe, then you have some things you have to think about. But I just want to close with when I went to the Bible, this Bible that I showed you last time, the Bible for Hope. It had a lot of information about abuse. You know, people think the Bible's outdated. The Bible is full of things that are helpful, and it's a wonderful reference to go to. Even if you don't believe the Bible, if you go to Proverbs, there's things there that make sense. They make sense in just common sense. Even if you want to know about mold abatement, Believe it or not, that's in Leviticus. It's about, if the mold is black, if the mold is green. The Bible has all these things to tell us about it. There were even hand washing rules that we learned later on were actually effective to help babies live, because they weren't washing their hands right. And the man read the Bible and he found out what needed to happen. But Joseph was somebody in the Bible that had been abused because of jealousy. That was it. Okay? And his brothers, there was a whole lot going back as to why they were jealous. The moms, there were two moms. They were competing over one man, all that stuff, all that family drama. You think you had an issue? Go back and read about Joseph's life. And his father made him a coat of many colors. He stood out like a neon sign. And when his brothers would see him, they hated him. They hated him. They thought that he was prideful and he was arrogant. He was rubbing it in their face. He wasn't. He was naive, it seems like to me. But anyway, this meant that they hated him so much they wanted him dead. And they took that very coat and they smeared it in blood. And they took that coat to his father, who had given him that coat and made it special for him, and said, look, he's dead. And he's not coming back to you. And it was a way of getting back at the Father too. That's very reminiscent of Jesus. And when he came, he didn't come to be arrogant or prideful. He came to bless. He came to show us that the Father had love. And we killed him. And it even talks about they took his garments and they cast lots for his garments. So who's going to get that valuable piece and sell it? There is abuse all over the place. We have all been abused at some time, in some way. But we can take those pieces that are broken and we can say, Lord, please make something beautiful out of this. Or we can take those pieces and hide in a closet in depression and sadness, and we can allow that person to continue to abuse us even when they're not in our lives anymore. Sometimes you have to say, God, set me free. I need to get out of Egypt. And you need to trust that God is working for those that were left behind. It's their choice to stay there. It was your choice to leave. So let God do what God has to do, and you live your life as God has told you to live it and walk in freedom. Thank you for being with me today, and next time you see me, I will be on an island. We're going on vacation, and we are excited, and we will be with my good friend Teresa and David, and we'll do some segments from there on the island. You can see the beautiful sunshine. All right, thank you and be blessed. And this has been Advice for Life with Dr. Cathy, and I look forward to seeing you again. Be blessed.